Welcome to Bible for Modern Minds podcast.
The deep dive. Today we are jumping into one of the most intense spiritual journeys we've ever come across in the sources you send us.
It's a decades-long story from an individual who went by Nassim and later Kareem.
And our mission for you today is pretty clear. We're unpacking a really detailed 30-year personal testimony.
And this isn't just about someone changing their mind. It's filled with these, almost cinematic supernatural claims. We're talking physical healings, visions of the abyss, spiritual battles.
All leading to a really radical and high-stakes religious conversion.
Absolutely.
And the context here at the beginning is just, it's everything. This story doesn't start with someone who was, searching for answers.
Not at all. Nassim was raised in Dearborn, Michigan.
Right, and his family was devoutly, almost fiercely Muslim. He says the community there was so strong, so cohesive, it was almost like being in the Middle East.
So his faith wasn't just a part of his life. It was his life, his culture, his identity, the whole framework.
Exactly.
Right.
And that deep foundational loyalty is so key because it makes what happens next so jarring. He wasn't just a cultural Muslim, he was all in.
And yet the sources show that the very first crack in that foundation appeared decades before the whole thing came crashing down.
Okay, let's get into that. This first seed being planted when he was just, 12 years old?
Yeah, and the setup for this first encounter it's almost weirdly strategic.
What's so fascinating is how it starts with this mundane little detail. He's sharing a room with his older brother.
And just on a whim, for a reason he can't explain, he asked to sleep in his brother's bed. And the key thing is, this bed was in the middle of the room, away from the walls.
Spot he normally avoided.
Right, and then, in the middle of the night, everything changes.
He hears a voice call his name Nassim twice with this incredible gentleness, and in that same instant, he realizes his consciousness is, it's floating.
It's literally outside his body. He can see his 12-year-old self just lying there, stationary, a full-blown out-of-body experience.
And the source material really digs into the significance of that bed swap. He later came to believe it was a kind of divine preparation.
A logistical setup, almost. The idea being that if he'd been in his usual bed against the wall, his first instinct would have been panic.
He would banged on the wall, woken everyone up.
Exactly. And he would have completely missed what this entity wanted to tell him. He felt he was guided there to that open spot.
So he has this massive spiritual event at 12, and then he just goes right back to his life for 30 years.
He doubles down. He becomes this proud debater for Islam, so committed to his identity that he gets Islam tattooed on his arm.
That's such a telling detail, isn't it?
Oh, it's the perfect symbol.
Yeah.
Tattoos are generally forbidden in Islam, so he's showing this fierce public loyalty.
While also privately breaking one of its rules. He was already fighting with the boundaries long before everything else happened.
And we should add, this idea of conversion wasn't totally alien to his family. There's a story about an uncle.
Right, who had converted to Christianity back in the 80s.
And he was totally rejected. He became the butt of jokes at every family gathering. But his response was always the same.
Calm. He would just say, it wasn't for her, it was Jesus who saved me.
And that must have planted a seed in Nassim's mind. This contrast between his family's rage and his uncle's quiet certainty. He knew the price of conversion was total rejection.
A price that became very, very real 30 years later. February 1st, 2020. He's 42 years old, and this is the moment the denial shatters.
He says he was, and this is his word, ripped from this world into the spirit world.
And the description of this it's genuinely terrifying. He describes falling into a dark, endless abyss.
He calls it a living darkness. Not just empty space, but something actively hostile. The wind was cutting his face. He couldn't breathe. It was a complete sensory nightmare.
And then the psychological horror kicks in. He hears this internal voice state, just as a matter of fact, you are dead.
He says the despair of the soul is infinitely worse than any pain on earth. Just this feeling of total, final separation from God. Game over.
So in that terror, what does he do? He goes to his foundation.
Instinctively, he starts screaming, Allah Akbar, God is great. Then he recites the Shahada, the absolute core of his faith.
There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger, the thing he's built his entire life on.
He screams it, he says, countless times, just vibrating with this desperate hope, and nothing. Just silence. The abyss doesn't care.
Imagine that feeling. 42 years of identity, of culture, of belief, just invalidated in a single moment. He said that is hell, the feeling that God doesn't hear you.
And then, in that silence, an intervention. A white light appears like a whirlwind of glory. He knows it's his angel.
And the angel calls him by a new name, Kareem, and gives him this urgent, non-negotiable command.
Ask Jesus right now to come into your heart and save you. Do it now before your soul leaves your body. He's the only one who can save you.
This is where it gets so interesting to me, because even then, at the absolute brink, he resists.
He's literally looking at this shining portal, this point of no return, and he's still arguing in his head. Where is Allah? How can this be? He's clinging to his old identity with his last breath.
But time is up, and with whatever he has left, he screams, Jesus, come into my heart, save me.
And the effect is instantaneous and violent. A gigantic flash, a deafening thunder. His soul is slammed back into his body.
So hard that he's in physical pain for days afterward. He wakes up shaking and just tells his wife, I died and Jesus saved me.
But here's the thing. That wasn't a moment of peaceful conversion. That terror, that violent return, it didn't bring him peace.
No, it kicked off this agonizing 8-month investigation.
Exactly. He had to try and reconcile the horrific truth he experienced with the 40-plus years of devout faith he'd lived. His first thought was deception.
Cheyenne. Satan.
Right. In Islamic teaching, a deceiver who could appear as an angel of light. So his rational mind is fighting his spiritual memory.
But the thing that finally broke him, the thought he couldn't get past, was just so simple.
It was this. I had cried out Allah's name countless times. Nothing happened. But when I screamed the name of Jesus just once, life returned.
And that one fact shattered everything. It completely upended his understanding of Jesus as just another prophet.
So from February to October of 2020, he's in this intense solitary search. He's reading the Quran every day, but he's also reading the Bible, trying to be fair, trying to make it all make sense.
He said he kept getting dreams, visions, answers that were pushing him in one direction.
And he had to get over this huge theological hurdle. The Islamic belief that Jesus wasn't actually crucified, that someone else was put on the cross in his place.
He couldn't accept that anymore. His experience demanded that the sacrifice had to be real.
And this whole exhausting journey eventually leads him back to that one person who'd walked this path before.
His uncle, the Christian uncle.
He finally contacts him, trembling, and just spills everything that happened.
And the uncle listens with that same calm he had years ago. And when Karim is done, he just quotes a verse from the Bible, from Matthew.
Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest.
And that just hit him right where he was. He was exhausted, torn between two worlds. He was definitely heavy laden.
But the final moment of surrender, the actual break, it didn't happen in some grand vision. It happened in the middle of total, messy human chaos.
It was Halloween night, October 31st. He gets a call. A huge fight has broken out with his son, who he'd kicked out of the house.
The son had bought a gun. Kareem is just consumed with rage. He's blaming his wife. Everything is falling apart.
It's just complete emotional failure. And in a hotel elevator, filled with this fury, he hears that same soft, firm voice from when he was 12.
I can help you. Remember me.
So he goes out to his truck, just surrounded by the chaos of his life, looks up at the stars, and finally gives in.
It's not a big, flashy prayer. He just whispers, if you really are who you say you are, come into my heart now. Save me. He calls his uncle. They pray over the phone. And he affirms his belief.
And he says he immediately felt a huge weight lifted. The internal darkness that had been plaguing him for 8 months, it just vanished.
Replaced by this strange, intense warmth that just flowed through his whole body. He'd finally found that rest he'd been promised.
So after that, the sources are just full of these little confirmations that start happening.
Right, signs everywhere. He felt like he was constantly being reminded he wasn't alone. He even saw the letters GMC on a truck and took it to mean guiding my child.
But the biggest one, the one that was just physically undeniable, happened around Christmas. He had this excruciating back pain.
2 ruptured discs. The doctor told him he couldn't even lift a paperclip for 6 weeks.
And he's in his shop, just in agony, and he picks up the Bible. He opens it to the last chapter, Revelation 22, and as he reads, he feels an electric thrill.
That's how he describes it. It started in his feet, shot up through his body, and the pain was just gone instantly.
And he says in the testimony, that was 2.5 years ago, and it has never come back. For him, that was living proof.
Even his wife got a confirmation. 3 months later, she has a dream. An invisible hand touches her shoulder and tells her to have him read Jeremiah 33.3.
Call to me, and I will answer you and show you great and mighty things you do not know. I mean, it felt like heaven itself was validating this whole insane journey.
But a change like this, A complete shattering of your identity. It comes with consequences, painful ones.
Of course, his family, both in the U.S. and in Beirut, they were outraged. His own father screamed at him in Arabic, "Get out of my house now, you trash!"
It was a complete rejection, exactly what his uncle had gone through 30 years before.
And it all came to a head at this family barbecue that was basically an intervention. They mocked him, they interrogated him.
Until he finally stood up and just drew a line in the sand.
His words were so final. He told them, "I'm not going to hell for anyone. In the end, each of us will be alone, and on that day there will be only one who can intercede for me, and his name is Jesus."
He chose what he experienced in the abyss over his entire bloodline.
And there's one last dream he shares that sort of seals the deal for him spiritually.
Yeah, kind of spiritual warfare dream. A beautiful man appears, holding a glowing Quran, telling him to come back to Islam.
When he refuses, the man transforms into this monster, scaled like a dragon, 4 meters tall.
But the moment a cross appears in Kareem's hand and starts to shine, this huge, monstrous being just flees in terror.
And that led him to his final, profound question. If Allah was the one true God, why didn't evil fear his name or his book?
But it fled instantly, despairingly, before the cross in the name of Jesus. For him, that was the ultimate confirmation.
Which really brings us to the core tension in this whole story. His old faith, he says, offered him no guarantees whatsoever of salvation. Certainty was only for martyrs.
Which he says terrified him. The stakes were so high and it was also conditional.
But his new faith, he claims, gave him immediate certainty, immediate peace. It was the fulfillment of that rest for your soul's promise.
And he says it changed him completely. He went from, a position of intense cultural separation, even hating Jewish people, to loving everyone because we were all created in God's image.
And his whole message boils down to this. You don't need a miracle to believe, but you should know that death is instantaneous. While there is life, there is a chance.
The whole 30-year journey is about the difference between calling a name and getting silence versus calling another name and being pulled back from the brink of the abyss.
And that really leads us to the final thought for you to take away. Kareem felt his own human mind could never fully rationalize the divine. He just had to surrender. So, given his claim that while there is life, there is a chance, what does this story, this decades-long struggle between supernatural clarity and stubborn human resistance, teach you about the timing of ultimate conviction?
It took him 30 years after that first experience at age 12 to finally surrender. So the question is, what are the risks of waiting for absolute, total certainty?
Something to think about.
A lot to think about.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.